Yay! I am live. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I don't usually go live on Thursday nights, but since I did not go live last night, since I had a speaking event, I thought I would come on live tonight. So tonight, I just wanted to talk a little bit about complex versus simple carbohydrates. So I've heard a lot about carbohydrates. There's a lot of myths about carbs and a lot of misinformation about carbohydrates. And a lot of times I feel like people are just really, really confused about this whole situation right around carbohydrates, like how much we need. Should I eat carbs? Like, why do I need to eat carbs? What are good carbs, right? What are complex? What are simple carbs? Are all carbs created equal? So all those things I will answer in this video. So if you are interested in learning more about carbohydrates, then definitely stay tuned in if you are joining me, and you'll want to hear what I have to say, and hopefully this will be helpful for you. So complex versus simple carbs. So really, your complex carbs are your whole grains. So your complex carbs have more nutrients, right? And that's why they're called complex. So, your whole grains, your fruits, your vegetables, legumes, right? Those are going to be more complex. And then your simple carbs are going to be more like anything that's really processed, but like your white flour, your white sugar, white bread, white pasta, right? All those things would be more simple. Even bananas, pasta, right? Dried fruit, that would even fit into those simple carbs because they have higher sugar. And I did mention a little bit in my last live about bananas, so I may talk a little bit about that more. But really, the main point that I want to get across with this video is that not all carbs are created equal. And that is very, very important because we need carbohydrates. Our bodies need carbohydrates. I teach students, young kids in schools, and one thing that we would tell them all the time when we would talk about carbohydrates is we would say that it gives us energy, and that is exactly right. Carbohydrates give us energy, and we need carbohydrates. Especially, as a runner, if you're a runner like I am, you need carbohydrates. You need to be taking in carbohydrates before your runs, after your runs, because that is what's going to give you that fuel. So carbohydrates, they give you energy. So they give your brain glucose and they give your muscles glucose. And it's stored as glycogen. And that is what fuels your muscles to be, especially in running, that is what fuels your muscles to run. So it's very important that you make sure you get carbohydrates. But as I said, not all carbs are created equal, so it would be more beneficial for you to get more complex carbohydrates. But for runners, it can be a little bit different too, depending on when, right? Because your simple carbs, of course, are going to be quick and short-lived. So those might be more things that you would, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, things that you would, if you want to get that quick energy, right? And your complex carbs too, right, are going to give you more of that sustained energy. So also with carbohydrates, it's really important that you understand what carbohydrates do for your body. So like I said, they give you fuel. They give you fuel for your brain. They give you fuel for your muscles. You need carbohydrates. But where I think a lot of times we run into this kind of issue with carbohydrates is because, as I said, not all carbs are created equal. And in the American diet, in the American general diet, it is very heavy in simple carbs. There's a lot of those carbohydrates, right? Fried foods, white bread, right? All those things. And if you are not exercising or you're not someone that's active and you're a very sedentary person, that cannot be good, right? Because your body doesn't need that, may not need all of those carbohydrates that you're putting into your body, so it's not going to use them. So what happens is it's stored as fat, right? And most of the time we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want to store those extra calories, that extra fat in our bodies, right? I can even give a personal story with this. There was a time where, even as a runner, I was fearful of carbohydrates. And I even thought I would try a low carb diet. And see how I ran, and I ran okay, but I had an issue with fiber and had constipation, and I couldn't go number 2, right? Which was not pleasant. It was not fun. And usually when I'd go for a run, it would get things going, and sometimes I really have to go. But in that case, it was still hard for me to go. And it was not good. And I could tell, I was like, this is not good for my body. But the thing is, I know when I don't run a lot and I don't get a lot of exercise, and I eat more carbs than my body needs, I can tell that it stores it as fat. And that makes me fearful, right, of eating carbs. But what I've learned is exactly what I started off with talking in this video, is that not all carbs are created equal. And that's very, very important to know, because you should not be afraid of eating carbohydrates. And the next point I want to make too is, when you're on a plant-based diet, it is very, very hard to eat low carbohydrate, because most of those foods that you're going to eat that are plants, so your vegetables and your fruits and your whole grains, those are all carbohydrates. So it would be very, very hard. And depending whether you have soy or not, if you can have soy protein, then that's good, because you can get more protein in. But on the other hand, right, it's still going to be very hard to do a low carb diet, because you're not going to want to eat just beans and soy products, right? And that I don't think would be healthy either for you. So let's see what else. Let's see. So carbs. What else about carbs that I wanted to talk about? So how much? So about 45. So if you count your macros, this might make some sense to you, but 45 to 60% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. And that the RDA is about 130 grams of carbohydrates. So that means that you should be eating at least 130 grams. But for runners, it also depends on your weight. So it's so it's important to figure out the kind of the estimate, right, of about the grams of carbs that you need to eat a day. And maybe you could even just start with maybe figuring out, maybe just keeping a food log and keeping track of how many carbs you do eat. And that could be really helpful throughout the day, to kind of just see where you are, if you're hitting close to those grams of that target, or percentage, however you do that. But it can be good, because you may be eating not enough carbohydrates, or you might be eating too much carbohydrates. And really, depending upon your goals, you can figure out right where you want to be and what would be the best amount for you, based on kind of your goals. So, say you're a runner and you would like to lose some weight, and right? And so carbohydrates, right, you're going to want to find a balance there, because you want to lose weight, but you're also a runner and you want to fuel your runs, right? And I would think that you would run races and you'd want to perform well. Excuse me. So you're going to have carbohydrates, but then you're going to have to figure out really that balance, because you want to make sure you're eating complex carbs, right, more often. But simple carbs are good too for runners. I have to say that because just because they are short and quick. So it really depends on timing with complex and simple, but I'm really talking more general. So in general, you want to eat more of those complex carbs. So anyway, so it's really important, right, for weight loss and running that you would want to try to find that balance, right, in how many grams of carbohydrates you should eat. Because, right, you don't want to, as I said, you don't want to eat too much, and you want to eat enough to make sure you fuel. But you're also not going to see those weight loss goals if, right, you're eating too many carbohydrates. So, you really got to find, I think that balance is really important to find. And that can be hard to do. Let's see, what else about carbohydrates? So for runners, meals should include, so I'm going back to just talking to runners here. Hey, Brittany, thanks for joining. So I'm just talking a little bit about complex and simple carbs and carbohydrates in general, as well as the importance of carbohydrates for runners. So really, for runners, your meals should include complex carbs, lean protein, and healthy fats. So as I said, those complex carbs, right, are going to give you that long-acting energy to get you through your run, which is going to be important, right? And then healthy fats are also important too. And then I wanted to, another thing too is with like, carbohydrates, you can also think about it as just like fats. So there's good and bad fats, right? And that's the same thing as your carbohydrates. They're complex versus simple carbs. So really, the other point I really want to make is that it's really, the amount is important, but really not as much important, I would say, as the type of carbohydrates, just like fats. I think the type is where the emphasis needs to be. That is what's most important. Because if you are not exercising and you do not, do much activity and your diet's mostly simple carbohydrates, it's going to lead to weight gain, right? And if that's not your goals, then that's not going to help you get where you want to be, right? Let's see, what else about carbohydrates? So I think that's really it. I didn't really have too much to share, but does anybody have any questions if you're on and you're watching about carbohydrates? So I'm just talking a little bit about complex versus simple carbs, and if carbs are created equal, and they are not created equal, but carbohydrates are very important for you because they give you fuel, right? They give you fuel for your brain, for your muscles. You need to have carbohydrates, and it is there is a recommendation. So there's RDAs for every nutrient that your body needs, and carbohydrates is a macro, right? And if you think about, this counting these macros, right? Your carbohydrates, your fats, and your protein, right? Because it's a macronutrient. So we need to have carbohydrates, right? We need carbohydrates. And they are not created equal. So it's important that you understand, the difference between those complex and simple carbs, and also what they do for your body. Those complex carbs are going to be longer acting energy. They also have a lower GI. So for diabetics, they're also better, right, to have. More than those simple carbohydrates, right, that are going to have a higher GI. So there's that too. Let's see. Anyone have any questions? No, I feel like this was a short video than normal. But I think that's really everything I wanted, all the points I really wanted to make about carbohydrates. If you are, kind of concerned about, like, if you're a runner and you're like, I don't know how many carbs I should have or how many carbohydrates, or if I'm eating enough carbohydrates, and I just really I really want to figure this out, then don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love to help. You can just message me on my Facebook page, my Instagram. You can DM me. That's fine too. But yes, don't hesitate to reach out if you are looking for a little bit of help. I would love to help. Another thing too is if you have not seen yet, and I know I've probably been talking about this a lot, but I did create an ebook for all of you guys on 11 plant-based recipes. So if you are interested, definitely let me know. You can even you can either message me or comment on this video, your email, and I'll get you signed up for that email list to get my free ebook, which is super exciting. I also created a sample meal plan specifically for female runners. And of course, meal plans are very, independent. It really depends on, right, you. They're very individualistic, right? But there is a sample meal plan there just to give you an idea of what, a plant-based runner would eat throughout the day. So if they're interested in that, then definitely grab that ebook. Like I said, it's free to download. So definitely check that out. So I think that's it. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, then I think that's it. Thank you all for joining. And I will talk to you guys all soon. Have a wonderful weekend.